Hi, my name is Aissa Huerta, and I'm the director of La Línea Art Studio on Morley. La Línea is a cooperative art space that aims to enrich the cultural environment of downtown Nogales. La Línea was proud to open its doors last November. We have a couple of resident artists. We have Carla Osete, who's a local artist who specializes in painting and sculpting. You can see her giant bicycle sculpture out in Monte Carlo. She's done several community murals. Her style is really unique and really interesting. We also have Nanette Miranda, who makes paper. She does it's a Western style paper making, but the way that she does it is so interesting. She has a lot of different fibers and things that she mixes into it to make completely unique paper that other artists in the community have used to print photos, to paint pictures, to do a lot of really creative things. Living in Nogales is a very unique experience. We're often reported in news as being a dangerous place or the war on the border, but there's so many more beautiful things about living here. And the unfortunate thing is that very few community members have the opportunity to tell their stories, to tell what it's like to live here, to tell what it's like to grow up here, to tell what it's like to be from here. We're located at 32 North Morley Avenue, in between the old Woolworth building and Melrose, across the street, or almost across the street from Cinderella. Coming up, we have a segment with Paula where she discusses some of these pieces and the inspiration behind them. Very interesting. And we also have a step-by-step instructional video completed by Nanette that will teach you how to make paper from pulp.
This one is Enter Cupid. This too is about my brother. I was trying, 4 times. I wanted him to find somebody who he had more in common with. So here's Cupid coming in to make the match, and you can see they have a lot in common. And even their smoke is meeting in the painting. Oh, yeah. It's a pretty simple painting. In search for identity. And I did this after I had a show, and this group came for me to talk about my paintings. And one of the people there thought that I got my ideas from Commedia dell'arte and Maurice Sendak, because I had some takes. And so I decided, to prove my identity, because I'm from the race of clowns. And Fellini's first movie, The White Sheik, he wanted this particular person to star in it who said he wasn't an actor, and he said to him, "But you're from the race of clowns." So he did star in that. It's my favorite Fellini movie. But here's the evidence of unearthing
like the terracotta warriors.
Yeah.
They all have different expressions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm out of here, and I was having a conflict, like wanting to do the right thing. I'd painted the dark force and the light force struggling in the sky, and this is Arcosani.
Oh.
There are Indian ruins near Arcosani, but actually the riverbed is on this side of the Indian ruins. But I wanted to just go away, take a trip so I could relax, stop obsessing on my problem. And so that, I'm packed up to go. But while I was painting this, a 5-year-old kid came in my studio and said, why doesn't the angel look angrier? And this is a different face. And after she left, I worked on it, because I thought, probably should work on that. And it started to look like a Native American to me. And so then I was going to go away. I was going to go to up to the Navajo reservation with my friend who had worked there, and but I felt this like conflict, like I shouldn't go. And then it turned out that someone had died, and we didn't go. And then we went to the beach in Mexico, where they ate and drank too much. But anyway, that's like.
And it's interesting how there's very little water.
Yeah,
In
the aquifer, yeah.
And her clothing is like a cello.
Yeah. In my future, I've been trying to learn the cello, but it's not working out.
So this is one of Paula's paintings. This one's called Private Showing. And she actually painted this while she was working in a studio that had no natural light. So when she would leave the studio, it was very much that experience of leaving a theater, of having this blast of natural light come at you and blind you. And so that experience really shaped this piece for her. And outside of that studio that she was working in, there was this really beautiful pond. And so she chose to make that the centerpiece of the show that is really private. And a fun little thing, there's a couple of fun things about this painting. This was initially something that she was smoking, that she didn't appreciate the comment that was made and transformed it into a paintbrush, which I think speaks to all the amazing things and transformative things that art can do. And finally, after this painting was completed, she added this little tiny frog. And this frog is really the theme of the private show. So this painting is called Probed, and it's actually a much less allegorical painting than most of Paula's pieces, but it's really interesting because this one depicts this man being jettisoned from a ship that he was abducted into, and he looks back longingly, wondering what the experience could have been. And he's falling into the ocean, but there's a small inner tube that represents the safety of going back to everything that he has known. This painting is called Playing for the Devil's Ring, and it plays with the idea about painting for profit. Paula doesn't believe this is compatible, so to seek or eke out a living with painting is really dangerous in her opinion. In this piece, her higher self is playing a card, which represents the values in which she was raised. There's a small painter on the table holding a golden ring, and the muses watch on. Around them, there are violin shapes that represent all the things that are going around out there that we do not know, and we do not know what card the devil holds. Will the artist stay connected to the muses? We have no idea. Before COVID, we had a lot of programs that we offered that we were really proud of. We had a sensory art therapy program that we offered in collaboration with the Southern Arizona Autism Association that provided a sensory art therapy session once a week for students ages 4 to 16. We also have a monthly offering called Open Studio Night. Open Studio Night started at the Little America Gallery at the Quality and Americana, and it was the brainchild of Nanette Miranda and Carlos Niñero. It happens the last Wednesday of every month, or it did pre-COVID, and gathers all local artists and art enthusiasts to collaborate and share ideas. We were really, really excited about this offering, and we look forward to having you guys in the future when we are able to open this space again. We were unable to hold Paula's exhibition of Both Sides Now, which is the show that's currently hanging, and she has a similar show hanging at the Museo across the line. But since we were unable to debut and have people come in here, we have offered an online virtual tour where you can take a look at the space and zoom into the pictures and see everything that we have to offer here as it is. If that's not sufficient for you, we also host in-person tours that you can schedule by appointment for a small group of people. And we'll bring you in and you can take the tour all by yourself. We have a lot of things to offer, and we hope that you remember us after COVID. My name is Aissa Huerta, and I'm the director of La Línea Art Studio on Morley, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
My name's Nanette Miranda, and this is my little paper making space at the La Línea Art Studio on Morley. Welcome. Today, what I'd like to do is explain a little bit about paper making, some of the things I use in paper making, and some of the different results you can get from different materials. So today, I have some paper that I made a few days ago, which I dried on a flat surface. And this paper has cotton, abaca, which is a banana leaf fiber, and corn husk. Now the cotton and the abaca I purchase, and you can use like recycled paper, which this is made from recycled paper, and for demonstration I'll show you why I don't use it. See how easily it rips? I'm not a fan of recycled. I'm not a fan of it just because it's not as strong a paper. This makes a very strong sheet of paper. The corn husk I gather from any barbecue I'm invited to, and I just offer to take their trash away. What I don't cook right away, I dry out the corn husks so that I can save them for another time. I then, when I'm ready to use them, I cook them with soda ash, which helps break down the fibers. That brings me to basically what paper is. Paper is simply fibers that have been torn apart and reassembled a different way. So when I say I use cotton, I buy the sheets like this, and these are cotton fibers. I rip them apart, soak them, and put them through my blender. Some of the paper I have today, let's see if I can pull this off here. This paper is made with cotton, abaca, and some blue jean fibers. Now, I used to collect old blue jeans and break them down with soda ash and beading, but most of the blue jeans that you buy now have spandex in them so they don't break down. So again, I buy this from a supplier out of New York. Again, I just rip pieces of it, soak it overnight, and then put it through my blender with plenty of water. What you end up with is a pulp, which I've squeezed most of the water out, but this is after I've blended it. I then rehydrate it with a lot of water. And that makes the slurry. This is the pulp and water, and this will make the paper. This particular vat I can use. I'm going to make a small sheet. I'm going to make small sheets today, but you can, I can make. I think this is 8.5 by 11. For bigger sheets, I have a bigger vat, which requires more water and more pulp. But for demonstration, this works really well. So first I get the screen. This is called a mold and a decal, or a frame and a screen. So, and all I'm doing, it's basic Western style paper making. So basically all I'm doing is pulling the screen through the slurry to collect all the fibers. Now I can see, this is a little bit of leftover pulp. So once I pull the sheet, I'll explain what else is in here. One of the hard things about paper making is trying to limit what you put in the pulp, because there's no end to the possibilities. What I have in this pulp, in addition to some blue jeans, cotton, abaca, and corn husk, are, and I'll show you, I'm going to let that sit there for a minute, cheap ribbon that I've cut up and put through the blender. And basically what it does, the blender just separates the fibers of the ribbon and gives you a little bit of bling right in there. The other thing I have, here I've got some of this left, is the other thing that's in the pulp, and I'll add more, is the cotton that comes from the cottonwood trees in the spring. So again, paper making has given me an excuse to collect when I take my walks, collect all kinds of things. But this is kind of pretty, and it's got a little bit of the husk on it too. So this is a sheet that I've pulled. Now the frame, what the frame simply does is just help you collect more pulp, and that creates your shape. And then the next step is it's called couching, and you turn it over and put it upside down on a absorbent felt sheet. Again, I have not invested in equipment at all. My felt sheets are basically chamois from the dollar store. And as the day goes on, the chamois that I use are smaller and smaller because they're getting smaller and smaller at the dollar store. So there's my piece of paper. What I did with a sponge by pressing excess water out is that also helps to press the paper. And when you make paper, the strength of the paper depends on how long the fibers are and how well you press it. So if I were to just pull a sheet and let it dry right on the screen, it wouldn't be nearly as strong. I'm going to show you what I have. I have like big sheets on the wall here. Those I poured onto like a patio screen, and they're not as strong. They're thicker, which gives them a little bit of strength, but they're not as strong as what I can make smaller. So pressing this out, normally I would just create layers and layers. You can see this is like another piece of felt. These are the best. These pieces that you get in, I think it's the automotive supply part of the dollar store. Where did I put my... So I'm going to press this out further. Risking the danger of, like if you press too hard while it's very wet, the fibers split apart. And you'll end up with holes in your paper, which sometimes is a nice effect, but not what I'm going for today. So now it's strong enough that if I'm careful, I can actually handle it. And you can see, can you see the different fibers in there? I love paper because every sheet is a surprise. It's like magic when you pull that out. And when it dries, like this has been drying a lot lighter, so it's going to be more like that. And this is a much thinner sheet, but it's quite lovely with the gold fibers in it. Now, when you look to add things to your paper, like I like to do like a basic pulp. And again, my basic pulp is usually cotton and abaca. And then I add to it. I always add some sort of plant fiber that I've collected and cooked up myself. This is corn husk. Another favorite of mine, cattail leaves, makes a beautiful golden brown fiber that makes your paper stronger because, as I said, I've not invested in equipment. So my equipment is a blender. Traditional paper making is about beating fibers till they separate. A blender cuts them. So you can't blend it too much or you get shorter and shorter fibers. If I add plant fibers to that, they tend to be longer. And I believe that gives my paper more strength than it normally would have. Let me see, in terms of additives, I have flower petals, and I don't, like these have been around for a while, so I probably won't use them. See how they've turned brown. Everybody loves to pick their roses and dry them out. I've not had a lot of luck with that because roses, if the paper doesn't dry fast enough, they'll turn brown and then kind of bleed out into your paper. That being said, I've used rose petals that have bled out like a purple color, which is pretty. Again, that's the fun of paper making. It's kind of magic, and you never quite know what you're going to do or what you're going to end up with. If I were, these I've dried, I've pressed them against this flat surface. So I have a very, very smooth side for writing. And then the side that air dries, because the fibers shrink as they dry, is textured. So again, these will make nice, these would make good cards, or you can make them into little origami boxes, or you can paint or draw on them as well. Let me see if I can, this one is, here, this one's thin. This one I like for writing letters because it's thin and you can see it's much more bendable. So to finish pressing this, I think I'm going to press this against the table also. If I were to let it air dry, it would be textured on both sides. And this is, you can see this one kind of pulled up from the table, and so it's got a wrinkly quality to it. I just love paper making. I just love that everything, there's so many discrete steps that at each step you can change your final product and pretend you intended it to be that way. I also have, in addition to flower petals, and again with the flower petals I like to let them dry first, because they'll just kind of decompose in the paper and very often turn brown. So if you use, marigolds hold their color well. Geraniums are fabulous in paper, either dried or fresh. They hold their color well, and they'll bleed out into the paper, giving it a really nice effect. I also don't like to part with a lot of textiles. I love fabrics, so I'll take an old blouse or an old pair of pants and cut it up into small pieces, and either throw that into my pulp as an addition, or put it through the blender so that the individual fibers will come out, much like the ribbon. I also would recommend, I use yarn a lot. I have a friend who does a lot of knitting. She saves me little snippets from all her projects, and as long as she's not into browns or grays, I'll get the little pieces, cut them even smaller, put them in the blender with water, and the fibers separate, and that will color my paper. Again, you can get very colorful paper from, this is all recycled. I'm not even sure what I put in here. It's just a variety of recycled papers, but it's not terribly strong. I would offer to rip one of those up, but I'd rather not. Let's see. Some of the things I also do is I like sculptural stuff. Hats are one of my favorites. They're very wearable. You can put a little piece of elastic on it and wear it not in the rain. But you can also use it as a canvas, like paint it and decorate it, adorn it with different things. You can make I made a band of fabric beads around one. So, I'll make these, and then lots of times I'll use them in classes as just a different kind of canvas. Okay, let's make another sheet of paper. I'm going to throw in some bigger pieces of ribbon. Again, this is just cheap ribbon that I had probably for some project. I'm going to just throw that in. So the paper that'll come up will have, it'll be more noticeable. The other thing I'm going to put in, I'm going to add more corn husk. Now this is corn husk that's been cooked in soda ash, rinsed very carefully, and then put through the blender so you can see the fibers, and it's a beautiful like yellowish fiber. And just mix it up. One of the other things, like when I teach paper making, one of the first things that I teach the kids is the paper maker wave, which should not involve big waves splashing all over, but putting your hand down at the bottom of the vat and moving the pulp around so that it's suspended in the water, and that'll give you a more even sheet. So I just added a little more. I'm going to add a little bit more of this. And what's nice is it kind of sticks to my fingers, so I can, let's see what this gives us. The temptation is to continue adding more and more and more till you end up with a big soupy mess, which is fun too. Okay, I can feel the corn, like I'm trying to separate the corn husk fibers in there. But that's, okay. And when I pull a sheet, it's a smooth movement. It's like, you don't want to stop in the middle unless you're looking for a specific technique or a specific effect. And I just want to pull it right through the pulp very smoothly and bring it up flat. And I always tell my students, don't shake your paper, because basically what you're doing, if you move it around too much, you're just shaking those fibers all around. See, this is a much more textured sheet, and it's, you can see the corn husk. Now, depending on which side, like that's kind of going to be, I'll dry that corn husk side up so that it'll give it a lot more texture. And then I take my sponge, try to get out all the excess water. Again, all this does is press it. This is, in lieu of a pressing machine, you're just pressing it by hand. Ooh, that's pretty. Okay, now I'm going to pull it up. And you see, like a lot of the stuff comes to the top here. So if I were to press it with this side down, I'd probably lose a lot of that effect. So I'm just gonna, now one of the things, I'm getting ahead of myself. This is so much fun. It's almost meditative once you get a rhythm going, and then you just kind of keep adding pulp. I can go all day like this till I get hungry. Okay, and that's going to be a little busier sheet of paper, so you may want to use that more in an art project. They're nice in collage. One of the things I said is when you pull a sheet of paper, your motion is real important. And like the pulp is getting thinner, so I've got to really make sure to mix it up. The motion is very important. You don't want to stop in the middle unless you want a certain effect. So if you go down and then stop, you end up with a partial sheet. Now, if I had another vat of pulp, what I would do, it's never going to be even, but what you can do is get a different color pulp and pull it through so that you get a layered effect. Like this is good if you want, oh, actually, I know what I can do. Watch this. I'm going to do this. I'm not going to press it very much because I'm going to try something different. So there, I've got half a sheet of paper. And now I'm going to add, more ribbon. This must have been a major project because I've got, and it'll be it'll offer a different color. Again, you can see where I'm going is that by the end of this demonstration, I'll end up with a bunch of stuff in my pulp, which if you're a purist is really offensive, but I guess I'm not. Okay, that has a lot of color in it. If I put it on top of that, I'll end up with like kind of a two-tone sheet of paper. Now, again, the beauty of making paper is that it's unlimited, the different effects you can get. So, okay, you probably can't see that now, but if I turn it over, no, you can't, there's not that much of a difference. But here's where the colored stuff is in this. It's almost too thick. Oh, this is great. I just made a horrible mistake. See the hole? Can you see the bottom there where there's a hole? Is that? It's much thinner. I pressed that. I pressed the water out too hard, and basically all I did was pull those fibers apart. This was, when it's very wet, you don't want to press too hard initially. And I did. I could say I did it on purpose, but I didn't. So this sheet I have two choices. I can say, okay, I'll use it for some art project, or I can throw it back in the pulp. And I can, as long as I haven't pressed it too much, I can just throw it back in the pulp and try again. Again, and it's a very forgiving craft. If you're not into perfection, and if you just like the more artistic side of it, it's a lot of fun. So I'll pull one more sheet. This time I'm not going to use the frame. And what the frame does is, because I can feel I got a lot of stuff in here, what the frame does is that, especially if you have very little pulp, the frame will collect the pulp for you. But I don't think I need that. I'm going to show you how to do it without the, I mean, you do it the same way, but you just get a different sheet. You tend to get more of a deckled edge also when you don't use the frame. And maybe I should just leave it like that. So this will give me like a much more jaggedy edge. I'm going to put it here for just a second. And then I'll do one more sheet. Okay, oh, I like this one because it has the real deckled edge. Oop. You can see this one has a real interesting edge to it. I'm going to make one more sheet like that, and again show you, like when you pull the screen through the pulp, you want a smooth motion. You go in at an angle, level it out, and bring it up straight. And watch me mess this one up. Okay. Oh, there we go. Oh, you can see I've got like huge clumps of corn husk. Again, I love working with mostly with the plant materials, because you know, you can cook up iris leaves, you can cook up different grasses, and by cooking it is you make it more archival. If you just throw them in raw, they will decompose in your paper, and your paper doesn't last as long. But if you cook them with a soda ash and then rinse them really well. Now this is a real thin sheet of paper with lots of stuff in it, so let's see. Oh, it's letting go. There we go. Yeah, this one's not as even, I can see. When the paper dries, it looks almost translucent, but when it dries opaque. Unless you use a bark. When I want a sheet of paper that's translucent and very thin, I'll use mulberry bark. And it creates a beautiful, beautiful tan-colored paper that's translucent. And I like, you know, depending on the project, I like to use that as well. Again, there's just like, it's unlimited what you can do. So we've done just small sheets today, but some of the things you can do with it, aside from writing on it, they make great little greeting cards because you have a smooth side for writing, and then the textured side you can decorate. I've printed on mine. I put it in my printer, as long as it's not too textured and too thick. I have a friend who's a photographer who's taken some very thin sheets, again sheets with bark, and has printed photographs directly on the paper, and they're quite beautiful. I also, again, you do sculptural things. One of the favorite things to do, and I'll just demonstrate a little bit with this, is taking wet sheets, and usually, I don't usually use something this small, but these make great candle holders because when they dry, you see you can shape them around anything. And as long as the paper's fairly wet, you can press the pieces together. And if I just let it dry on that, it makes a sweet little bowl, although it's kind of small. But again, we made small sheets of paper today. You can make bigger sheets too. I like to use this paper in collage projects. The paper that I have on the wall is a combination of handmade paper and silk fusion and old handkerchiefs, which someone gave me. So there's like greeting cards, letters, paintings. One of the other things I like to do is take inexpensive markers, not the permanent markers, draw designs on it, and if you wet the paper, it bleeds into the paper and you have like a whole other effect, which is nice if you're making candle holders, because when you put a candle in, the light shines through and you can see the designs. When I make I do a lot of candle holders and earrings, and I coat those with an epoxy. That way I've never started a fire with my candles, and the earrings last forever. So let me see, what else do I do with this? Oh, it's unlimited. Like I said, I'm really big on making paper bowls that I can then coat and put outside for candle holders. They're great in the summertime. Hats, earrings, and of course books. The other thing that's fun to do with this, if you're doing any kind of collage or embellishment on a book cover or a card, you can sew on this. Like I put this through my sewing machine, and I'll do combinations of paper and fabric. Again, you just get a really beautiful, beautiful effect. And the paper's surprisingly strong. So I think that's about it for today. Again, my name's Nanette Miranda. This is La Línea Art Studio on Morley, and thank you for watching.